Okay. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm very well, thank you. Your hair color looks gorgeous.
What sort of, yeah, because I haven't been dyeing it, so it's gone a lot lighter now.
Yeah, it's really nice. Well, you've done well considering that you haven't dyed it for however long.
Yeah, like,
Oh,
not so good up close.
I think it's a good result considering, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm a bit wonky. I'm just gonna prop myself up. So I have just gone absolutely freezing tonight. So rather than where I usually do the temple talks from
Mm.
downstairs in the living room, I'm in my bedroom. So I'm a bit snuggly tonight.
I know I'm the same,
So
so don't worry.
firstly, welcome, Denise. It's so lovely to have you on, and welcome participants coming on for this temple talk. You're all really welcome. Just to let you all know that this temple talk will be recorded, but if you do need to pop off at any point, sorry, I'll start with it will be recorded. So if you think that you might want to ask Denise anything or share anything that's of a personal nature, then what I would suggest is you hover over your name and you give yourself an alias. But if you're happy for us to refer to you by first name only, that was the only thing that we will refer to you as. But it is always lovely when the participants of these chats join in, say hello to us, contribute, and I do my best to bring you into to the discussion so that we can all discuss things together. But if you guys need to pop off at any point, then it will be uploaded. I'm sure Denise will have a copy, and I will also have a copy on my Temple Talks on my Sister Circle page. So let's get started. So Denise, I'll give you an introduction. You're a teacher and you are certified in sexuality and sexual health. Is that right?
Yeah, I've just qualified. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And tonight we're going to be talking about STIs, the taboos around STIs, living with STIs,
hmm
and hopefully try and kind of smash through some of those taboos and those barriers. It's about time, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, so can we start at the beginning, like with you and what motivates you in this amazing, really brave work?
Yeah, of course. Well, really, my journey has been, I got genital warts when I was 17. And genital herpes when I was in my 20s. So it's been a topic for me, really, and something that I've struggled with. But I suppose talking like this, having these open conversations have been in the last couple of years. So I started, when I was teaching in Liverpool, I started going to different like circles, women's circles, and sexuality things. And I really, really enjoyed that. And I suppose we're talking about sexual health, and I just brought up, I had STIs, and it was just really empowering. It was the first time I really properly spoken about it.
Yeah.
So since then, it's been a bit of a momentum, and I was at another course, a PR with Heart course, fantastic course, and they were talking about starting your business or starting what you really want to do. And I left teaching, and this is what I'm planning to do. I want to open conversations about it, and I think it's a great opportunity to have a personal narrative about it,
Mm,
because it's a really hard thing to talk about, and it's not something that's talked about.
no.
So I really want to do that, open the conversations, and I've been studying in Dublin, sexuality and sexual health,
Mm,
and gathering other different bits and pieces. But that's where my interest is, and it's a real passion for me now.
yeah.
Um,
And what's the vision then? Like after all the talking and the
mm,
making things more acceptable to discuss and to talk about and to share.
mm.
What's the vision for women?
Well, I'd really want. I mean, if it was acceptable and if the stigma sort of was dropped, that's the number one. I mean, that's a
Sorry, Denise,
huge
I'm
thing.
going to interrupt 1 second. I'm
Yeah,
really sorry, but my
that's
alarm's
okay.
going off to tell me that I'm doing a table talk with you.
That's okay.
As I think it'll go off again.
Again, yeah.
Switch it now. So apologies. I'm sorry to
No,
stop
you're
you
fine. Don't be silly. You're fine.
mid flow. So as you were saying,
Um. So what was I saying? You caught me
what
off
was
guard.
what's the vision for the
Oh
future?
yeah, the vision story. I just think, really, I mean, you were talking about acceptance and stigma,
Yeah,
and that is going to be a huge thing. But I think that it'll start really with the conversations,
yeah,
and also with the education. And I don't blame people. If you don't have an STI, where would your interest be really in getting that education? But I think if we have the right education, if we really have it non-judgmental, we change how it's perceived. There's a lot of misconceptions
Yeah.
which lead into those, lead into the stigma. Promiscuity and you're unclean, all of these different things are huge and have a huge impact on how you feel if you get an STI. Um, so I suppose society really just educating ourselves, and because if we are having sex, there is a risk there. And I'm
Absolutely.
not, I'm not saying risk in a way, in a bad way. I'm just saying being really just being open and honest, and if you're having sex, there's a risk. STIs are a part of sexual health, and I don't think we really talk about it enough. Um, and so that would be, if we can talk about it, if we can sort of assess our risk a little bit more, and you choose, it's up to you. I'm not judging anyone, they're your lifestyles, but I think if you know more about that, because now at the minute, the education is very much, this is an STI, look at all the horrible graph.
Oh, Denise, I've just stopped being able to hear you. I don't know if something's knocked off or.
You lost me.
Yeah, you're back. I can hear you. Don't
Are
know
you
why.
back?
Yeah, it was just the last sentence that you said, and um, we were talking about kind of
Hello?
the risks. Can you hear me? We've got some communication blockages. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
Ah, we just had a little
You're
block.
back. That's okay. Yeah, so I think at the minute, we're not really talking about that sort of risk and talking about how we can manage that. And it's a really practical thing to do. And there's loads of proactive things that you can do. So that would really help. Um, and my vision is really helping anyone that has an STI to talk about it. And you can talk about it with a friend. You could talk about it. It doesn't have to be publicly like this, but I
Mm.
think that really does help. Um, and I think, anyone I spoke to, sort of 90% of the problem is the stigma. There's a real imbalance between how it's perceived and actually the physical symptoms, which aren't that bad. You just need the support. You need a little bit of education, and that's it. And you can really, it's manageable. You can do it. But I think the stigma is just so huge that it makes everything a little bit more complicated.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And from my experience, and I don't know how it's taught in schools now, but from my own education experience of STIs, it was just always a case of don't get them,
yeah.
and so there was such a fear around it. So if you did, and I recall when I was before I was 20, I contracted chlamydia before I even knew that chlamydia was a thing. I don't even know
Mm.
if I'm so kind of far out of the spectrum now. I don't know kind of if chlamydia is still, because I remember it was like a popular STI.
Yeah, it is. It's the most popular. Yeah,
Right,
definitely.
okay,
Hmm.
because it's the unseen one. There's rarely
Yeah,
symptoms, right?
yeah,
Yeah, and I remember being absolutely horrified and thinking that I've absolutely done something wrong because after I've been taught don't get them, everything
yeah.
that we were taught was don't get them. Nothing was if you do, then it will be okay. Like I remember being absolutely horrified. I couldn't tell anybody.
Yeah, it's what you said. There's not that information about what you do. It's a huge gap.
Yeah.
And even when I've been studying and we've been looking at the education system around sexual health, it's like one lesson, and the lesson is so factual, but
Yeah.
it's just a really dry way. There's no emotion to it.
Yeah.
um, it could only take 5 minutes at the end and say, look, if this happens, this is what you do. It's going to be fine. All of those different, but that's never put in there. It's always very, it's just scare tactics, really.
Yeah, and exactly, and scares the right word really, because
Mm,
it is creating fear around it, and
yeah.
with fear kind of comes shame and all of those kind of emotions. And as you know, I'm studying with Layla Martin at the moment as a sex
Mm,
and relationship coach, and one of the things she talked about, although I can't talk about this personally because it's not something I've experienced, but many women who are finding that it's affecting their sexual experiences because they're terrified of contracting an STI, and that's a thing. Like I didn't,
yeah.
that's not just one or two women who are experiencing that, but a real fear around the potential risk, like not just of like pregnancy or other, but contracting an STI is a real issue that affects women's sexual well-being, and
Yeah, it's a huge thing, and also sort of if you have an STI, it can affect, definitely with me. After I got an STI, I was just so nervous about, passing it on, and because it happened to me quite young, I really, I'd say I'm quite outgoing, and I thought, right, okay, I have this. I went and got it, checked out. But after, it was just totally in denial about it. I really didn't understand. And that's sort of the thing with genital warts and herpes in particular. These are sort of long-term infections that will stay in your system, so they can reoccur. So it's different than the bacterial, sort of the chlamydia, where you have the medication and that clears it from your system. Um, with herpes, there's a bit of a longer term effect, and it's not a really negative thing. It's just some things that you have to put in place. Um, but definitely when I first got, I was just denial, because when they go away, the symptoms go away. You just think, okay, it's not there anymore.
That's gone now. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just sort of a natural thing that you think. And I really didn't think I took in any information that was given to me. And the information that I did look up was so scary. It was just the words incurable. I think I looked up like 100 different sites to try and get a different one that said something, and it didn't. Just the really graphic photos, lots of forums with people saying this is the end of your sex life, this is the end of your life. I felt like depression, just really, yeah. So I just think if we can really get the clear information and support there, it just makes it a lot easier. And I definitely wish that I had that when I was younger, because I'm only really talking about this past couple of years, like really recently, and that was sort of when I was 17. So this is a long time.
It's just such an amazing thing that you're doing, because I mean, for all age women, for two different reasons. One, because if there was a younger, girl who may watch this and later contract something with this experience, she might have a completely different experience of that diagnosis and what her future holds. And but then for the older woman as well, because I often think that if you were to contract something later, then you're also kind of out on a limb, so to speak, because there's not a lot of kind of facilities, let's say, or there's some things going on for younger people, isn't there? Like I remember there's sexual health clinics for kind of 13 to 18-year-olds growing up, but what about the woman in her 40s, and so what happens for her? Do you know anything about kind of?
Well, I know it's sort of an area that's not really, it's not an area that we did a lot in, when I was studying, but I do know that, obviously habits are changing, and, relationships maybe aren't lasting for the long term. So people are sort of in and out relationships. So you might find yourself, 30, 40, 50 single. And as you say, you might have that information, but also, as you say, there are the clinics for the young people, and there are a lot of information for the young people, but not so much for sort of older. And I was thinking that actually when I was in a clinic getting tested not that long ago, and there was a person beside me that was older, and it was all these young people, and it was just that older person, and I just thought, I wonder how they're feeling, here. And I suppose it's maybe not something you think about over, like.
No. But yeah, everyone's having sex, aren't they?
Yeah, like everyone's having sex. They're so common, and it's something that gets me. It's just the secrecy, and I don't mind the privacy, because sex can be private. That's totally up to yourself. That's up to you. But I think it's the secrecy that makes it really a lot harder to manage, because then you think nobody else has it. Like, nobody's talking about this. Nobody has it, and it just makes it much more difficult.
And so can we talk about then, when you said that your change was when you started to go to women's circles, and that you felt able to share some of this information, and so how was that received within those circles, and why was that the change point for you?
It received really well. I felt like it was just a really welcoming place, all of those circles, and it just really just felt natural for me to say something. I felt really nervous, obviously, but I just thought, I'm just going to say this. I'm going to say this, because it has affected, definitely has affected like my desire. It's definitely affected relationships, all of those things that sort of we were talking about in the circle. So, and I think it was definitely just something I was dying to say. It just, it's really, the thing with my story is I've made it quite difficult on myself because I've kept it like a secret. Which is, and once you keep a secret, I'm sure anyone knows about any secret, for the longer you keep it, the harder it is to say.
Yes, yeah.
Um,
God, that
so
must
what?
have been such a difficult moment for you.
Yeah,
What
but
so about that liberating?
yeah, it was, and it was really empowering. And the more I said it, the more people started talking to me about it, and I'd started to get messages from people saying, "I'm so glad you spoke about that. That's really affected me." I just thought, I really can help people with this, by talking about it and showing some more of the realities rather than just, this is the STI, never get it. And then if you get it, you're just in this shame situation. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's the end of the world, but it's really not the end of the world.
And so what would your, talking about it is one aspect, but what about
Mm,
when people do approach you then and they think, right, this is the woman I want to open up to, she's done it, I trust her, and they start talking to you about this STI that they've got, and it's one of the ones that we talked about, like genital warts or herpes, that's going
mm.
to possibly reappear. What would you say to them that would make them feel like, that it is okay, and that they can cope with it, and because I know that you've managed this within a relationship as well, and that's a whole nother conversation that we'll talk about in a sec.
Yeah, well, it's sort of funny that you said the words "it's okay" there. Because when I was trying to think about this and I was thinking about, what's the advice? And, I was thinking about all this, like break the stigma, open up, talk about it. And it just came really clear to me that literally "it's okay" is a perfect phrase because it's just that reassurance that I feel like settles you. If someone just says, like, "it's okay," it does really make you calm and think, okay. And then we can work from that. And it really is just that, also can be self stigma because you can inside be thinking, if somebody says, you're promiscuous, you're a slut, whatever, all these different things. I mean, then you start to feel that inside, and it really does have an effect.
And my God, let's not just put anything more of that sexual stigma onto a woman.
Yeah,
We already
it's,
have it all. We
yeah,
carry the whole lot around sexuality, and so
yeah,
fuck, you just don't want any
yeah.
more, right?
So I think just that reassurance, and it mightn't seem like it's a huge thing, but for somebody that maybe hasn't talked about it, for somebody that is only hearing certain things,
Yeah,
it really will make that huge bit of difference.
yeah,
And then really practical advice about, how to disclose to partners. And these are things that, I didn't know and made it more difficult, really, when you
yes.
don't know
And then I
about
suppose if
this.
you've got a plan of how you will disclose it to future partners, then that doesn't go hand in hand with my sex life is over. You've got
Yeah.
a strategy, haven't you, and how you can cope with that. And so well, how did that look for you? You've been with your partner for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, so I think probably the disclosure part of my story is one of the aspects that's made it quite difficult. So I made it really difficult for myself. Originally, when I got warts, I was very young, and once I got it treated, and then for years I didn't have any symptoms, so I really didn't think about it.
Okay.
Um, and I think I was just in denial anyway about it, so I didn't think about it. I was just normal, natural with partners. And then I sort of had it in the back of my head, but not really. I never slept with someone and thought, oh, I'm going to give this to them. I really didn't have symptoms for years and years and years. And then I actually passed it. I started a new relationship and I passed it on to them. And they came to me and they said, this is it. I've got whatever it was. It was actually herpes because I had warts and herpes. But anyway, whatever it was with STI. And I said, and they came to me and said that. And I just can't explain how I got it. I felt, especially because it's like a new relationship and you're trying to be really sexy and gorgeous and you're trying to be really in the moment, and it was just really horrible. And automatically when he said it, I was like, what? Just denied it. I was like, no, no, no. And then sort of I phoned him and I brought him back and I said, like, this is it, and just burst into tears. And it was really, really hard. Like, we sort of worked through it together. and it came to a natural end.
How old were you then?
This is sort of 20s, yeah, in my 20s.
So
And this,
it's still so young to be navigating those topics
yeah,
in a partner.
yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, then our relationship came to a natural end. And then it was really, I just had a huge guilt about him then going on to other relationships. And that was just another huge thing. And after that, really, I just educated myself and thought like this is enough. And after that, like I didn't go out with anyone for a long time, and it was all to do with being scared to pass it on, and just really feeling that shame that I had passed it on to someone else, and now they're dealing with it, and it was just a really horrible feeling. So after then, as I said, I got more educated and learned how to disclose to people. And like, I mean, it is scary. Like, I don't have a very good memory, but I can remember these moments that you're about to say to someone about it. And your heart is beating, but once you do it a couple of times, it's fine. And it really is how you say it. Because at the start, I was sort of saying, "Oh, I've got this. Oh my goodness," and obviously they were thinking, "Okay, it sounds really bad because the way I was saying it."
Yeah.
But I actually didn't really get any negative reactions from it. And the difference between the not disclosing really and the disclosing, complete different. I felt so empowered. I felt like I'm just taking care of my sexual health. This is the information. If you want to sleep with me, you can. If not, that's no problem at all. I felt so empowered from that.
Imagine.
So it just does really make a big difference. I've sort of had an experience of both. As I like to say that as well, because obviously we're promoting people to disclose, but I just feel like I've got a real empathy as well, because it's really, really difficult, and I'm not perfect, and I've made mistakes in that, but I do know a huge part of that is the stigma, and it's just the weight of it is just huge, and how everyone's perceiving it, and it just sort of adds difficulty to it. Really, that's why we're trying to get rid of it if we can.
And I can almost imagine that by disclosing this information and having to have those conversations early on in your relationship would, kind of define it really in terms of its depth and,
Yeah.
how you're able to talk to one another and give it a sense of maturity, or, it's not actually going to work.
Yeah, because you
Nice
feel
timing
it's a really vulnerable moment, and I wouldn't say that I normally let myself be vulnerable. So in that really vulnerable moment, if you have had that conversation and it's accepted, it really does add like a depth to the relationship.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah, what a beautiful lesson for you as well.
I know.
So, I suppose my next question is then, like, obviously the majority of this is about stigma and about creating conversation. But what about some of the practical kind of sides to things? Like, how can you? Because obviously with the things that come back, they're not there all the time. So are they only able to be passed on when you have them, or how does it work?
Yeah. Yeah. So I suppose really herpes with me, warts is, I feel like it's went away. It hasn't went away, but it's just not for a long time. So really, if you've got symptoms, so say herpes, the symptoms are like a little red blister. And if you've got the symptoms, then obviously it's highly contagious to pass it on. If it's cleared up, so you can take like a treatment, like a topical treatment. If it's cleared up, it's less likely to pass it on to someone. But it really does depend, because if you're having symptoms all the time, there's like, it's called like a shedding, and you can shed to another person even if you haven't got a symptoms. So that's sort of the tricky part, I feel, with both warts and herpes, because even if you don't have any visible symptoms, so you would say you're asymptomatic, you still can't pass it on. It's a low risk, and it really does depend. If you're someone that gets reoccurrences all of the time, then there's a higher risk. If you haven't had a reoccurrence for so long, it's a low risk. But I think that's something it's quite tricky. It's because you feel like you can't you feel like you can't pass it on because you've got no symptoms,
Yeah.
but you can. But it's also so common that a lot of people probably have it. So that's another part of it that makes it a little bit more difficult. But I suppose really with my experience and how I felt after I'd passed it to someone, it really had a really negative effect on me. Um, so I just think, if you really can be honest and open, and then, when you are I'm in a relationship now, and I have reoccurrences, not often, but I do. And if I do have a reoccurrence, we just don't have sex, when I'm having it, maybe a little bit after. Um, there's sort of some of the practical things, if you have the symptoms, obviously don't, have any sexual contact, maybe a little bit after.
Yeah. And are
Um,
there patterns for reoccurrences?
I think there are sort of common things like being run down
Yeah.
because it's sort of a virus. So you can tell yourself, you can tell in your own body if you're feeling run down, sort of like you sleep, if you're stressed, if you're drinking a lot, any of those things would be things that would trigger. For me, it's sort of lack of sleep, run down, but also sex can be a trigger
Ah,
because it's sort of like a friction.
right. Yeah.
So, and some people find that, some people don't, and some people also around your period,
Mm.
it can be a bit of a trigger. So I think really you just have to find your own sort of
Triggers.
triggers, and really try and you know really try and avoid those if you can. I mean, you can't all of the time, of course, but I mean things like being run down, looking after yourself will obviously help, and less your reoccurrences.
Yeah. And, even though these aren't STIs, I imagine that most people have their kind of go-to weaknesses in the body, don't they?
Yeah.
When they run down, something
Mm,
flares up. People get cold sores, others get migraines.
yeah.
Different. This is just another one of those kind of weaknesses in the body, I imagine.
Yeah, well, the herpes virus itself, it is two strands. So one of them's the cold sore virus, and one of them's genital herpes. Now they can sort of change. You can get the cold sore in your genital region, but it's the same sort of when you're getting it. You have that tingle with herpes. You can have that tingle like you would with a cold sore. So you can also feel when it's coming on a lot of the time. And some people really don't have that many recurrences. They really don't. For me, I have had quite a lot, and maybe a year I don't have any, and then maybe a year I have two or three. It just depends, really.
Well, you were giving
Um,
them all because you're going to have to be the teacher, aren't you? So you're going to have to
yeah,
know that end of
yeah.
the spectrum.
I'm the expert. I'm the expert of that now.
They weren't going to give it you easy, were they?
No, yeah,
So you said that some people can get it and then maybe just not have like many at all in terms
yeah,
of recurrence.
yeah. And a lot of people have either genital warts or genital herpes, and they've got no symptoms,
Mm.
and they don't know. So I think that part of it is a little bit tricky. It's
Yeah.
it makes it a little bit more
Mm.
confusing. Um, so I think that's why even more getting sort of the education there would be fantastic.
Yeah.
To learn that, and it is just learning your own body,
Yeah.
and sort of that honesty with disclosures as well.
Mm. And so where do you see this work going? Like, kind of which kind of part of the community would you work in, or like would you want to go into schools? Would you want to work primarily with girls or teen?
Yeah, I'm sort of planning that at the minute,
Oh, well, let's
but
hear.
well, I'm sort of starting to plan, but I've really been trying to raise awareness with the Instagram account, and you know, looking at other really fantastic advocates of sexual health
Yeah.
and learning from those people and building that knowledge. And that's also a place people can come and, follow accounts and get really quality information.
Yeah.
It's really not non-judgmental, which is hard to get sometimes.
And
That
Instagram's
sort of,
the perfect platform, isn't it? Because
yeah,
you can go onto something very lazily,
yeah,
and you can have a wealth of information there, but also branded in kind of much prettier ways than when you Google something and it comes up
yeah.
in it's like most horrendous form on the internet.
Yeah, Googling. I mean, there's not even any point saying not to Google because everyone will. So you can have your Google, and then really have your better quality information.
Yeah.
But it is really hard. Like I know myself, I do it as well. Um, but yeah, Instagram's a part of it. So creating awareness there. I've also just started a Facebook group. I'm sort of hoping that it'll be for youths, because that's really where I wish I had that information.
Yeah.
And it's a really good time to start that. And I don't think, as far as I'm concerned, the information that's really given out at that time has any emotional, factor to the teaching. There's
Exactly.
not there's nothing there for that. So, and I think if I can probably quite easily, give some examples of my story and what's happened, and I'll have a better impact than giving a presentation with 10 slides and this is the picture, this is what you don't do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully, yes, with youth, um, but really also, I don't know, it's going to be a mix. So for youth, I'd love to go to festivals and things like that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know they do have
An
pop-ups,
idea.
like sexual health
Yeah.
pop-ups, and um, some of the charities do pop-ups there, so that would be a really great thing as well.
That would be great. And, I just think you would be such a good advocate for young people, and the fact that, you look so healthy and normal and attractive. And I just think kind of, the face of STIs has
Yeah,
changed.
you put me on a poster.
It's just
Yeah.
so positive, isn't it? Coming from someone young and vibrant and yeah, and just kind of in her power really. And I think that's going to give particularly young women just such a different message.
Mm, definitely, yeah. Yeah, it'd be great. I mean, it's starting out. I mean, it's something that I've been thinking about for a long time now. But it's just really, I mean, we're talking about it here, and I talk about it with, my uni class. I talk about it sort of on Instagram, some of the advocates, but in the overall population, who's talking about it?
Yeah.
Who's the if you can't see anyone, we have like the mental health advocates and all of that information out there now, and who is talking about sexual health?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be this big, it can be just something really casual. It can just be somebody saying to you, don't worry, this is what you do, and just framing it in a different way. The image out there. I mean, I was researching a little bit for an essay I was doing about the history of herpes, and some of the pictures and the posters and herpes will change your life, it's a death sentence, all of this, and it's just
Awful.
brought it's just brought up to be, it's just so stigmatized. So anytime someone says even the word herpes,
Yeah.
it's really hard to say. It's just so much stigma to it
Mm.
already. So yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely can see why it's so important to keep talking about it, because the more talking, the less stigmatized and the more comfortable conversations come and the more normal they become as well. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's amazing. I also have been thinking a lot about just the rise in sexuality in young people. Like
Mm,
quite a lot of groups online at the moment. We've got like a friend of mine, Ria. She's doing the Lolita project, which is all about sexuality in young people and open conversations about that. And I think that combo is a really brilliant one, because you've got that sex positive, really empowering sexual conversations for young people to involve in, but that hand in hand, would just be such a beautiful blend. So I imagine like you rub shoulders with, that kind of work, and I think it would be like just genius, really.
yeah, it'd be perfect. I mean, because it's just an aspect of it. It's an aspect of sexuality, sexual health that we just don't talk about. And it can be done, it can be done well, and yeah, and just really positively. But I think definitely from my experience, I just had a really negative experience really of any of the information that I got, and I definitely didn't get any information when I was in school.
Yeah,
Don't remember anything like that.
I just remember just being scared. Just don't get it. No, this is
Yeah,
what you don't want to get. You don't want to get pregnant, and you don't want to get an STI. And that was
yeah.
it. There was nothing. Like no one taught us that actually we could enjoy sex.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and where's the there's no practical, there's no practical advice on that. There's no, if you want to do this is, options, how you can look after your own sexual health, how you can judge that, your choices that you can make. This is the information, this is quality. There's no stigma attached to any of this, but you choose, yourself, not just don't do this. And
Yeah.
they still have it, it's still now, and pictures of like cartoon STIs coming up and on the screen, on little clips, and I was just like, ah,
Yeah,
yeah,
the image needs to change, doesn't it? The
yeah,
branding, just everything surrounding it all, and it can be done in such a positive and caring way.
yeah. And I'm not naive. I'm not naive to think STIs are going to be these flowery things and all of this. I'm not. Um, I just really want the information to be clear, to be accurate, not to have any stigma attached, not to have any judgment attached. If you were able to do that, it would be amazing, and more people would be going to checks, more people would be able to talk about it.
Yeah,
It'd be easier to disclose to people because you don't have that, um, that feeling that what are they going to do? What are they going to say? How are they going to judge me? Are they going to think I've slept with hundreds of people when no, you have sexual contact sex with one person and you can get an STI, but I suppose that misconceptions can make it really difficult.
absolutely, and probably
Mm.
mean that less people go and get help, right? Or yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
get talking about it. I think we're kind of possibly coming up to the end of our conversation, and just wondering if anyone in the participants would like to ask any questions to Denise or share any of their own stories. Just pop them in now if there's anything you'd like to share or ask. And just want to share a chat with you. It says, thank you for your honesty, Denise. This is a really important aspect of health, which we speak openly about.
Yeah, definitely. The more people we can get, the better. And you're creating these opportunities as well. And it's not just STIs. It's about sex positive. It's a huge area that we're building towards. So hopefully we can do that. I don't want anyone to feel like I did for so long.
Mm,
It's just such a long time, and that is huge amount of stigma and
yeah.
secrecy. That's what that was that made it so much more difficult than it really had to be.
Yes,
Um,
and there's just so much of that, isn't there, in all sides of sexuality, and I'm aware that it is for men as well, but particularly for women, there's just years and years and years piled on top of us of, disgust, shame, alienation, confusion, just
mm,
such misleading conversations about sex and sexuality, and it just feels like now there's so many women just bubbling up to start learning and being pioneers for the future of what sexuality looks like and how we frame it and how we talk about it. And this is just one piece that I feel is really, really super important.
definitely, yeah. As you say, it's just empowering people you to do that and make their choices and have the information that they need.
Yeah. And so,
Mhm.
how can people find you, Denise, if they want to
Yeah.
contact you?
So mostly at the minute is Instagram, so it's at Let's Talk STIs, but it can also be on Facebook at the same name, Let's Talk STIs. So if anyone wants to send me a message, they can. Of course, they can do it personally, and I'm gonna be posting more and more things up as I start to build really what I'm gonna be offering in the next little while. But you can always contact me, and I'll be putting really good quality resources up there and promoting other really fantastic sexual health advocates in the area. Um,
Amazing. And what,
yeah,
and can people help by sharing the things that you share and
yeah, of course. Just resharing things. Just if anyone's having a conversation about it, maybe just not sitting back if someone's making a joke. And I know it is easy to do.
mm,
But I think just changing how we're talking about it, and as you say, to normalize it, and get the information,
get
and
on with it,
you know,
get on with your lives, get on with your
yeah.
sex
I mean,
life.
yeah. There's more important, like in the sex life. There's more important things than this. This is something you can manage, you can deal with, like, and then you can do everything else and enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything else you want to share before we close up?
Just a big thank you to you,
Mm.
and yeah, for the opportunity to talk about it. And yeah, it's been really, really, really good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, I want to say thank you as well on behalf of all the women who've tuned in for this talk, and just the fact that you're offering such a gift, and it's so fucking brave, like considering you are a pioneer and you are coming into this scene where there is still taboos, and
Yeah,
breaking through that, and it's just so amazing. So, you are a pioneer. So thank you, and thank you for the work you're going to be doing for the people that need to hear this message, whose
thank
lives
you
could be
very
completely
much.
altered through it. So, bow to you, darling woman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise, and thank you for everyone who tuned in. And we've got another Temple Talk next Wednesday at 7 o'clock, and I'll let you know the details in the group. And so, good night, everyone. Have a lovely evening. God bless.
Bye.